Hello, I'm Alan, and welcome to today's edition of Alan's Cycling Adventures. Well, I have about 5 weeks left to go until the Century, the Twin Lights ride, on September 17th in Highlands, New Jersey. And so today my training plan calls for a 59-mile ride at the pace that I want to do the Century at, which is about 15 to 17 miles per hour average moving speed. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm excited to bring you an all-new route. I had originally planned a route that went north, but it had a dicey section in the way that it crossed Route 22 coming back. And so I planned another one, this time going west. It still has a slightly dicey section going along Route 22 at some point, but we'll see how it works out. If you enjoy today's video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, click the subscribe button to subscribe to my channel, and if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, or ideas for future editions of Alan's Cycling Adventures, be sure to leave them in the comments below. Well, without further ado, let's ride! Today's route turned out to be not too bad. The original route that I had planned out was a 59-mile route that headed north from my house. Going north, it went over an overpass over Route 22, so that was acceptable. But coming back, it had a rather dicey way of crossing Route 22. For those of you who are familiar with Route 22 in Union, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You see, Route 22 is 2 lanes going east, 2 lanes going west, with a center median, a grassy center median, and in many places there are buildings and stores and shops on the center median. There's also U-turns on the center median. The speed limit on 22 is 50 miles an hour, and people do it. And the northerly route had me coming to Route 22, crossing 2 lanes of traffic, going around the U-turn, crossing 2 lanes of traffic again, and finally turning off of 22. Personally, I don't think that's a very safe thing to do on a bicycle, so I decided to run a route that went west instead of north. This route had a couple of issues with it as well. First of all, it had me riding on Route 22 for about 3 or 4 miles, but it didn't look like it had me crossing Route 22, so I decided to give it a try. Well, getting onto 22 was a little interesting because I was coming from the north and had to cross the westbound lane to get to the eastbound lane. But at that point, there were traffic lights on 22, so there were natural breaks in the flow of traffic, even though all I had was a stop sign and had to wait for traffic to clear. And then I was able to get onto 22 East, and there was a nice wide median, so it wasn't too scary, wasn't too bad. And then it had me making a left turn to get off of 22, which was a little challenging, but it was doable. There was a traffic light where I was making the left turn. I just had to cross the 2 lanes of traffic and get into the left turning lane to make that turn. The other hiccup with the route, I would not have been able to tell previous to riding it, because the map doesn't show closed roads. But one of the roads that I went on had a closed section, and there was a bridge where they had concrete barriers preventing you from riding across the bridge. I decided to see what it was going to be when I saw the road closed signs, so I continued on. And you'll notice at one point I walked the bike. That was to get around the barrier and over the bridge. I did that because there were people walking in the area, and I figured if they were walking and it was safe for them to walk, it was safe for me to walk. Anyway, that turned out to be not too bad, fairly uneventful. You'll also see me stop and talk to someone towards the end of the route. What happened was I stopped for one of my gel stops, and an older gentleman across the street who was in front of his house started striking up a conversation with me. The problem was I couldn't hear what he was saying, and he had a heavy accent which made it harder to understand him. Turns out that he had a bike that he was trying to sell. Once I understood what he was getting at, I explained to him that I wasn't in the market for a bike, and I continued on my way. For those of you who like statistics, the temperature at the start of today's ride was 76 degrees Fahrenheit, and by the end of the ride, it was up to 82 degrees Fahrenheit. At the start, the wind was out of the south at 1 mile per hour, so a very nice light breeze. And by the end of the ride, the wind was out of the southeast at 6 miles per hour. Today's ride was 59.23 miles in length, and it took me 3 hours, 29 minutes, and 15 seconds of moving time to complete the ride. I had a total elevation gain of 1,926 feet, so it was a fairly flat route. There was one major climb on it. That was the climb up Bonnie Burn Road in Scotch Plains, for those of you who are familiar with the area. And that climb was 0.72 miles in length, with an elevation gain of 210 feet and an average gradient of 5%. I had said that I set out to have an average moving speed of 15 to 17 miles per hour. Well, I absolutely nailed it. My average moving speed on today's ride was 17.0 miles per hour. My maximum speed was 31.3 miles per hour. My average heart rate was 136 beats per minute, and my maximum heart rate was 159 beats per minute. I burned a total of 1,995 calories on today's ride, and had an average power output of 124 watts. For those of you who like to know where I ride, I started out in Garwood, New Jersey. I rode through Westfield, Scotch Plains, Fanwood, Berkeley Heights, Watchung, Warren, Bridgewater, Martinsville, Liberty Corner, Pluckerman, Somerset, Bedminster, Lamington, White House Station, Mechanicsville, Branchburg, Raritan, Somerville, Bound Brook, Middlesex, Dunellen, Plainfield, Fanwood, Scotch Plains, Westfield, and back into Garwood. Next week's ride is going to be 64 miles, although I have to work on my 64-mile route. I think it actually comes out to 67 miles. Anyway, whatever the route is, distance-wise, is what I'm going to do next week. And with all that said, well, it looks like I'm almost home at this point. This is coming through Westfield. I hope you enjoyed the ride as much as I did. Well, that wasn't too bad. A couple of hiccups along the route, but for the most part, it was a good route. I had beautiful weather for the ride, so I'd say it was a success. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my video, and until next time, stay safe out there.